Database connection. Citrine is designed to load, manipulate, and analyze production data from many wells. It handles both static, well parameters, and dynamic data, pressure and rate. Data can be loaded from several sources, including standard files, IHS web service, and databases. This video demonstrates how to connect Citrine to a relational database like SQL, Oracle Microsoft Access, or Excel using an appropriate OLEDB driver provided by the ADO Data Access components. Citrine can load, reconcile, and update data from multiple sources. For reconciliation when bringing data across multiple databases into Citrine, each well must be assigned a unique identifier, such as well ID or a well name. In this video, well parameters and pressure gauge will be loaded from one Excel file and the rate gauge from another Excel file. The data load process is the same for other types of database. There are two tables in the first data source: well data, containing well parameters with each record corresponding to an individual well, and prod data, containing rate and pressure data, each line containing data recorded from a particular well at a particular time step. The second data source contains one table with pressure data, press data. Create a blank Citrine document with gas as the main phase and casing head as the measurement type, and click OK to create the document. Click on Load Well Data in the ribbon at the top. In the Data Loading dialog, select Load from Data Source. In the Data Source Configuration dialog, click on the Add button to create a data source entry. A dialog pops up, offering a choice for the ODBC driver. Select between 32 and 64-bit based on your Microsoft Office installation. In the Custom ADO plugin dialog, click on the Define button to specify the path to the data source and its parameters. In the Provider tab of the Data Link Properties dialog, select the appropriate OLEDB provider and then click Next. In the Data Source field, paste the path to the file and click the Test Connection button. To establish the connection, go to the All tab of the Data Link Properties dialog and set the value of the Extended Properties field to XL 12.0 if an Excel file is being loaded, otherwise set it to XL 8.0. Go to the Advanced tab and set Access Permissions to Read Only. Go back to the Connection tab and click on Test Connection to see that the connection is now successful. Once the connection to the database is established, close the Message and Data Link dialog by clicking OK. The required tables from the data source are connected using the options in the lower part of the ADO plugin dialog. Proceed to define a well table. From the list of tables, select the one that contains well parameters. Select well name and well ID columns in that table. Then define the well info table. Select the well properties to be loaded and transfer them to the right side of the dialog. Next, define the data table. Make sure the time channel is correctly selected, then transfer the required rate and pressure gauges. Now that all the fields are defined, close the ADO plugin dialog. This updates the data source dialog with the successful connection, indicated by check mark under the status column. The next step is to add another connection for pressure data. Click on the Add button and repeat the steps as before, pointing to the different data source. Paste the path to the file Go to the Advanced tab and set Access Permissions to Read Only, and click the Test Connection button. Once the connection to the database is established, close the Message and Data Link dialog by clicking OK. Note that for this data source, there is no parameters table, hence Well Info table is left unchecked. But the well table must still be defined for cross-referencing. The data source dialog is now updated with the two sources. The next step is to map well properties and gauges in the database to Citrine's data structure. Click Next on the Data Source dialog. In the Well Properties Mapping dialog, fields from the data source are shown on the left. Citrine internal well properties are listed on the right. To perform mapping, select a field in the source and select Citrine's corresponding well property, then click on the Add button. To map a property from a data source that does not have an equivalent in Citrine, select the field in the data source, click on Map to New. In this demonstration, net reservoir thickness, proppant pumped, and reservoir are new properties defined. Click on Properties to access the Manage Properties dialog. Observe that the newly mapped properties were added to the list. In this dialog, the property types and units can be defined. After mapping well properties, the next step is to map the dynamic data. Click Next to access the Time Series Mapping dialog. The Source column shows the available time series data from the database. They should be mapped to the corresponding Citrine data types. Set the date reference for the rate and non-rate data and the duration of the rate data. Then click Next. The list of wells available in the data source is displayed. Additionally, this table contains a preview of well properties to allow the filtering and selecting of a subset of wells before loading. Click on the Load button. A confirmation pops up, asking to save the configuration to an Excel file. This is useful for adding new wells and loading data collected after a few months of production. The wells are now brought into Citrine along with their data. The dynamic data is displayed on the plots, and the well properties are shown in a table. Wells are also displayed on a map according to the loaded coordinates. Once data are loaded into Citrine from a database, the Update Well Data icon becomes active. Note that it only checks for new dynamic data for the wells already brought into Citrine. Clicking on this button brings up the list of all available wells. Clicking the Update button checks for new data in the database for the loaded wells and updates the corresponding gauges. If there are new wells in the data source, they would be brought in separately. The configuration file can be used for loading the new wells. This concludes this video on database connection. To learn more, please visit our website. For more information, contact support@kappaeng.com or your local Kappa office.